just think it was amusing the story that Dave Stewart tells that same year, '82, Eurythmics recorded Sweet Dreams album. It won CD of the Year award. Obviously CDs were quite new then, and Dave Stewart was always hugely amused by this because the entire thing was recorded analog.
Yeah,
it was on a Soundcraft. I think it was an 8-channel Soundcraft disc.
And I remember that year exactly. It was Dire Straits had come out on CD, and we were Heaven 17 were Virgin, and that's when the 25% deduction in royalties for digital release disappeared, because it was so much more expensive to make a CD. When in fact it's hugely cheaper to make a CD than a piece of vinyl. And what is extraordinary is because you get a download from Spotify and it's still digital, it's still open to a 25% deduction, and there's no shop, lorry driver, manufacturer or anything. It's just getting streamed straight to
the cheaper it is, the less you get. I mean, next time there'll be nothing. Spotify, the next thing will be nothing.
You're still getting money from it. I have to pay them.
It's like it's like the 70s when the 12-inch came out. Record companies didn't pay anyone royalties on the sales of 12 inches until one of the managers woke up one morning and went, "Hang on a second, what's going on here?"
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Any excuse to rip off artists, they would grab with both hands. And strictly speaking, for me, the money that Spotify is making should really be going to music publishers, not to the record companies, because they're not manufacturing anything anymore.
Absolutely.
It's people's songs, and yes, the record companies might fund the recording of those records, which the artist eventually recoups. But the industry seems to be completely topsy-turvy, and writers complain to me all the time that they're not making any money off these digital channels at all. 14 million plays, and they see about 3p in royalties.
But it should be PPL, shouldn't it? So it's no different from the radio. It's just playing it out.
But what it means is that there's no future for any new songwriter, because there's no point. They cannot make a living doing this, and the companies are content to live off the back catalogue. It's easy.
And when you think, when you go back to that 80s era, when Heaven 17, Heatwave, those records, you were doing 1 million singles in the UK. You were doing 1 million albums, and then you'd do 500,000 in Italy, 500,000 in France. Then you'd begin getting America. And these things were all going out at 10 quid. I mean, the record companies were just sloshing around in money to the point that it really was, well, it cost us, X to do this. And now we've got 30 million quid coming in. We're either going to pay 15 million quid of tax on it, or we can put 15 million quid into recording some new bands.
I think it's always been at that kind of level anyway. When George Martin had a whole row of massive successes with the Beatles, he asked for a bonus from EMI, and they refused.
Yeah.
He was on. Do you know his wage at the time?
£15,000 a year. I've no idea.
3,000.
Yeah.
And he told him to fuck off and started Air.
But when you look at, someone told me, I'm not sure of the actual validity of this, but I heard that Netflix in 1 year, I don't think it was last year, I think it was the year before, Netflix put more money into commissioning new material in 1 year than the BBC has put into commissioning new material in its entire history.
Wow.
Good Lord.
Now, if you could get Spotify,
yes.
I mean, the problem is, for some reason, Spotify isn't really showing profits, but there must be profits in there somewhere.
Yeah, and their staff are earning fortunes. They've got very big wages.
If they could be reinvesting in a music industry like Netflix is investing in materials, suddenly all the studios would be opening up, and all the musicians would be back out there, and we would be back to those amazing times. But I think it's the one thing about the music industry, really, that it's such a collaborative art, isn't it? As an art form, the best records we ever made were the records where we had you and Ray and Simon and Frank Ricotti and all these guys in the studio, all telling stories and having a laugh, and Chris and me, and there was just such a buzz around that you just don't get out of something being made in a bedroom now,
I agree with you. Those names you've just said reminded me of a moment that Ray will remember. We were doing a session for a French producer at Trident, and it wasn't very good. And it was a kind of disco thing. And I happened to hit on a phrase that was a 16th note pattern, but it happened to be the notes of the hornpipe. Da-da-lum-bum-bum. It just came out as part of the bass line. I thought no more about it, but tried it again. And Ray picked up on it and echoed it. I did the next line. This is during the song.
Yeah, 120 beats a minute.
Yeah.
It was after 80 bars rest for the bass drum. You know the one. And then it was the fade. Suddenly it was the fade, wasn't it?
But it got more and more of hornpipe embedded in this tune. Frank Ricotti overdubbed on Vibes or something, heard it and joined in. And we remember the producer saying at one point, "What is this tune you are playing?" It's almost entirely hornpipe.
Well, just improvising, man,
And with the beat of 120 beats a minute and that click in your head all day. When you went out to Water Street for a cup of coffee, everyone's marching in the 120 beat cafes.
But the greatest thing about that session was it was all full up with people coming in and out all the time. It was, the French sessions. Everybody and their dog came down. Or should I say Sean? They were, I'm sorry, I mentioned that. After his joke with me, I had to learn several languages. Catherine Deneuve walks in. I suppose the late Catherine Deneuve.
Did she? Oh. She features in one of my stories. Do you remember that? So when I was
No, but I'm telling my story about Catherine Deneuve, so you can just wait. And you can tell your story after. Sorry.
Wrong way round.
You're not the only person. She might have been the only person. Anyway, depending on what the story is. Anyway, there was no room at the inn, how Trident works. And I was looking around to sit. She said, "Here, you can sit on my lap."
No.
No, did you?
Yes, and I sat on her lap.
Oh, you didn't say that to her?
No, Mo. Catherine, or Cat, or whatever, as she was called to her friends.
Reenie.
Arthur. They said, "You can come sit on my lap."
Very nice.
And I did, and I got daggers and admiration from everybody in the room who'd want to do that strange thing. Luckily, the piece lasted, 10 minutes and 3 throbs. And it was finished.
Oh, didn't you work with Bardot?
What's that?
With
You did
Louis?
Bardot.
Yes, she came down.
Yeah.
She didn't turn up. But everybody brought a camera and claimed that there was a little camera shop opposite the studio in St Anne's Court. Everyone said, "I've just brought it in for repair."
It's right. That camera's shop. Yeah. Go on. And what's your Catherine Deneuve story? I don't know.
I can't remember if
I'm sorry to say.
I was working with Simon Phillips at the Paris Olympia for 2 weeks with a singer called Veronique Sanson, like a female Elton John.
Wonderful.
And there was a French band, and the show was set out such that she'd start off with piano and singing, and then the one guitar would walk on stage, and then percussion, and over about 3 or 4 songs, the whole band slowly built up. And I was on about the 5th song, and you get a bit casual after a bit. You hang around a bit, you get bored, and you do other things. And I'd gone backstage for the final piss that you have to have before you walk on stage. And backstage at the Olympia, it was a real shithouse. There was no lights. It was dark and it's stinky. And this little toilet booth, I was trying to wee in darkness. And I suddenly heard the tune starting that was behind me, 20 feet away. I'm supposed to be in. So I panicked, I must have turned around like this, which caused me to wee down one trouser. And thought, oh no, I've got to walk on stage. So I'm feeling my way around the back corridors because there's no lights. And Veronique used to have not little, but used to have showbiz friends in every now and then. You'd just come back to see her. And you never know who it was going to be. But as I'm groping my way back, I was aware of walking past somebody. And I walked on stage and stood sideways so nobody could see the damp stain, and joined in on the bridge as if that was normal. So I thought I'd got away with it. And while I'm playing, I just looked back to see who it was. It was Catherine Deneuve, staring at my trousers. So
it's your trousers.
I didn't get to sit on her lap. Not with that.
Blew that one.
It's not good enough. No, it's not good enough.
One thing I was going to ask you two, Mo and Ray. Yeah, I only realised recently that both of you played on Scott Walker's album Climate of Hunter, and you also did Night Flights with Scott Walker. And they're two records I've always admired, even though they're quite bizarre. I love them. But I read that he didn't want you to rehearse or play together. He wanted to record everything individually. Is that right? Because he didn't want you to kind of blend and riff off each other.
Well, my awareness was the basic tracks were just me, Peter Van Hook, and Brian Gascoigne on keyboards. And so we played the whole album like that. And what we didn't have is lyrics or melody. So we never sing. Not even Greg's brother, Pete, was allowed to hear the lyrics beforehand. So that's what we did. And it was truly original. I mean, there's a track called Rawhide, I think. And he made us turn the thing upside down. So Pete's snare is on the on beat and that kind of thing. It's quite weird playing it. But it's very good.
Oh, so you didn't mind doing that? You
no,
you're happy to experiment.
It was lovely, yeah.
Nice.
Refreshing.
Wasn't
Everybody else heard of.
that IBC?
No, Townhouse.
No, because I can remember doing some overdubs for the Hunter album in IBC, and it was the time the power cuts were on, wasn't it? There were some power cuts were on.
It was blimey, early 80s.
It would have been 82, 83. It came out 83. So
yeah.
It was middle of Thatcher years.
Yeah. No, I mean it was a very strange and silent sort of box. No one said much. They said play and then we'll do another one. But they kept everything.
My brother produced Scott for, God, how many albums did Pete do with him? I mean, all of them, really. Was he on the one you did?
He was on Night Flights. Not Night Flights, sorry. Climate
of a Hunter, yeah, he was definitely.
Yeah, so from there on, Pete produced it, my brother.
Was it always the same? Did he not hear the lyrics?
Always. Extraordinary productions. Extraordinary, you know. I mean,
that David Bowie did with Brian Eno, where Eno got everyone, I think on Boys Keep Swinging or something, he got everyone to swap places. So the bass player played drums and the drummer played guitar to make it
better.
Discordant.
And the thing is, Nick, it's interesting, really, because what you want in a studio is something to fire some sort of creativity and imagination, because, there's only so fast you can play a song before it becomes code. Anything above sort of 240 beats per minute, and it's so you're limited up that way. Anything below 60 beats a minute, everyone's going to go to sleep, and there's 12 notes in a scale, and there's a limited number of ways that you can piece that together. And so from a production point of view, suddenly get a guitarist to play a bass or playing something where you don't know the melody, or all of these things, they open up doorways into avenues that you weren't expecting that you could then walk down. And those avenues then become interesting because no one's walked through those doorways,
Also, communication was important. It was always very hard for the players, such as myself, who are not near a microphone, trying to talk to the control room. You're shouting, no one's listening or can't hear you. I arrived at this novel situation with Chris Neal and Nick Ryan in Montserrat. We did an album for Sheena in Montserrat, and the bass was hidden away in a booth, so I couldn't see anybody or they couldn't hear me. So if anything went wrong, I'd have to switch off, take everything off, open the door. It was a pain. So Nick and I arrived at a system whereby if ever he heard me playing the White Cliffs of Dover, he knew something was wrong. So it's quite bizarre.
And the amazing thing now, live with everyone on in-ear monitors, on a stage, and it's all going very, very rock. Communication is really, everyone needs to have a little talkback.
You remember the wedge monitors on stage, which were standard. Phil Palmer told me the story about the Dire Straits tour. They crossed from America into Canada, and everything changes. The food changes. Everything's different. And backstage, the catering smelled different. There was HB sauce. There was bangers and different kinds of things. And they had a meal there for all the guys in the band. But Mark Knopfler and John Ilsley decided to eat after the show. So they made sure they left enough sausages and wine.
Oh, sausages.
Yeah. So that's what happened. They go on stage, they do the show, they come off, there's nothing there. The catering's disappeared, the sausages have disappeared. The guitar player is furious. And they have a big shout out backstage, good cop, bad cop, people held against the wall, where are the sausages? It gets very silly, very trivial sometimes. And the mood is bad. It stays bad into the night and doesn't get resolved until the next day, when the road crew, rather enterprisingly, wrote out a set list which is propped on the monitors, giving you the titles of all the songs. And they managed to squeeze in the sausage into every title: Sultan of Sausage, Sausage and Juliet. And it worked. The mood came back.
Fantastic. Nick, I'm going to have to love you and leave you. Thank you very much.
I'm having huge problems with my camera as well, but I think we're done. That was a great one. Thank you. Some good stories there. Thank you so much, Greg.
Lovely to see you all. Mo, Ray, be in touch, chaps. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
And
Greg.
Greg, can you be sure to send me that tenner you owe me?